What's up, everybody? Welcome back to KyTalk Live. Tonight, we have the very brilliant Sage Brocklebank with us. Welcome to the show, Sage.
Well, thanks for having me, Kai.
How's everything going out your way?
Dude, for me, pretty great. Like, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and obviously, if you're going to be stuck in a place in the world during a global pandemic, where it's a pretty great place to be, and lots of nature, lots of mountains, and lots of stuff to do. And I'm from here, so like my friends and family are here. So, yeah, man, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. Living the best quarantine life I possibly can. We do have bourbon, so it's always a
Yeah.
good thing, I guess.
Now, what
you
kind of
mentioned,
bourbon are you drinking?
right now, I'm actually drinking Maker's Mark, which is
Oh,
made in Loretto,
mhm.
Kentucky.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
It's pretty good, yeah. Are you a bourbon fan?
Well, I am. Yeah. So it just so happens I was very excited to hear that you're in Kentucky because I was planning a trip to Kentucky in like 2010. We were started putting it together, and then it never happened. But it was gonna be like a Bourbon Boys trip with a bunch of guys. We were gonna fly
Nice.
down into Kansas City, and then we were gonna rent an RV and do a big kind of donut and go to all the different bourbon distilleries and try all of them because I'm really familiar with Maker's Mark and with Knob Creek
Hmm.
and like Booker's and whatnot. But I know that there's all those small batch distilleries that have such high quality product that I've never had. So I was really excited about this trip. And then this year we were going to do a trip in like May or June, yeah, because I bought an RV and the plan was to get down there. And then obviously the world, shifted, and there's no driving to Kentucky for me at this moment. Yeah.
No, and the sad part was I was actually looking at RVs because I wanted to head your direction. As a matter of
Oh
fact, I'm trying
yeah.
to talk my wife into actually moving out there someday. It's just such a beautiful location and so
Oh
much to
yeah.
do and see. So,
Have you ever
but
been to Vancouver?
Vancouver, no. Washington State is about as far up that direction as
Okay.
I've ever been. So
Yeah.
I tried getting there.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, in a year or two when the borders open, you shall have to come by and check it out because it's really beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if you're ever down this way, let me know because I can definitely give you the scoop on some things. There are some tour buses you can also take for the Bourbon Trail.
Oh, really?
And I tell you, it's a great time because a lot of these tour guides will allow you to drink the product on board, and some of the distilleries are just where they're located is just beautiful property. I mean, it really is
Oh.
untouched for years.
Oh, I'm in, man. I'm totally in. Yeah, you will
No,
definitely hear from me about that because I've wanted to do that for
outstanding.
a long time. No.
Yeah, and I've always been. I mean, I didn't actually enjoy bourbon until I moved here and learned about it and got to visit the distilleries myself. So, now speaking of Vancouver and outdoors,
Mhm.
you're an outdoorsy type person anyway. You love to do outdoor. You go snowboarding,
Yeah.
biking. You do it
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
and you're in the right place for it. Tell me about the snowboarding out there.
Oh, dude, it's great. We have Whistler Blackcomb, which is, at one point I think it was the top ranked mountain in North America, but it's always like top five. They've built a peak to peak gondola from one mountain to the other that cost them like some like crazy like $100 million, some crazy number or something like that. So it's this gondola, so you can go up one mountain, and each mountain would take you like 45 minutes to go all the way from top to bottom. Like they're
Nice.
big mountains, right? High
Yeah.
elevation. So you have those mountains that are like the creme de la creme, and that's about an hour and a half to 2 hours from Vancouver, depending where you are. And then locally, we have like Cypress Mountain, which I have a season's pass to. That they had the Olympics there, they had some events there,
Yep.
and that's fantastic. And so I'm like a weekday warrior, because I have a business where I kind of work on houses and renovate them and still be some out. And so I will start work at noon when it's a good fresh pow day, and I'll zip up to the mountain and get my 2 hours of shredding in, and then come back. And I love it, man. I just love shredding on the slopes. Like it's such a glorious feeling to be out in nature.
Yeah. Well, you got the best of both worlds. I need mountains in my life and ocean in my life, and Kentucky has really neither of those. So it's been pretty rough on me here.
Yeah. Do you guys have like nice lakes and stuff like that, or?
We do. The lakes here are beautiful. You can get out and do a lot of boating, water skiing, things of that nature, and
Yeah.
it's a great time. My next big adventure, I guess, is going to be scuba diving. So we're going to give that a
Oh,
shot.
have you've never done the scuba before?
I did it once in where was it? St. Lucia, just as a tour type thing. They,
Yeah.
give you a quick course and you go.
Yeah. I did scuba diving this winter, and so I was going to I want to go to like Central America, and I've been like Trinidad, or no, I've done Nicaragua, and I've been Guatemala, and I've been Costa Rica, and I was like, okay, like why don't I try Honduras? And Honduras is like known to be kind of sketchy and like dangerous, but there's this island called Utila, and it's like one of the cheapest places in the world to get your scuba diving license, right? And
Nice.
and I'd never been scuba diving, yeah. And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna go on vacation for like 2 or 3 weeks. I might as well get take this course because it'll be something to do that'll be kind of fun while I'm there and whatnot. And but I didn't realize like it's work, dude. Like a scuba diving course is like, so I get there and I'm like, I've been working like every day doing construction stuff, and I'm like super exhausted, and I really just want to like get drunk and like be on vacation, right? I'm thinking like, oh, this will be kind of fun. And so like I show up the first day and they give me like this like 50 or 100-page manual, and I'm reading the manual, and I'm like, they're like, yeah, you got to be back here tomorrow morning at like 6 a.m. to start. And it's like, I'm like, 6 a.m. This isn't a vacation.
Vacation.
I was like, this is ridiculous. And so like I deferred my course for like 3 days because I was like, nah, it's Friday night. I need the weekend. I'm on vacation. And then the guy who deferred me is like, oh, you're not going to want to defer. And I'm like, why? He's like, because you're with Mark right now. He's like, super cool. I'm like, yeah. He's like, if you defer, you're going to be with like Mary. And I'm like, huh? He's like, you'll see. And so then I
don't want to see.
I was like, what do you mean? How bad can it be? And then I get this like teacher who's this like British woman. And she was just like, she had to pick like one person in the class to just like come down on. And I was the guy, and you're underwater and you're wearing all this gear and you're like suffocating and you can't breathe. And they're keeping you down there because you got to like, dude, it was so much work. It took us like, there was like a crazy rainstorm for like a week. And so this like 4-day course ended up taking like 10 days because there was these torrential monsoons and like windstorms. And I got to say, like, I got this certificate. I was happy I accomplished it, but I didn't really enjoy it at all. I'm not a scuba diver. I was like, and I think some people really do like scuba diving. And like, I get in like a really nice tropical thing. And so it might've just been the trip that I had, but I would forewarn you, if you're on vacation and you're thinking of scuba diving, the scuba diving training part is not a vacation. It's work. It's like an intense course with like quizzes and tests and the studying, and you're up at 5:30. Like it's serious.
Yeah, I'm scratching it off my list right now.
Yeah, exactly.
No, not at all. I've always been an extreme sports type guy. Like I love skydiving and all that, but I get married, have kids, and my wife's like, you can't do that anymore. And I don't think she appreciated the fact, though, every time I went for a jump, it's like every jump, they say 1 in 5 million chance of a death.
Yeah.
So every jump, I'm like, 1 in 4,999,999.
Yeah,
We're good. So she's like, we're putting a stop to it.
Oh, how many times did you skydive before?
I only got to do about 15 jumps before I had to stop. So
that's pretty impressive, though, man. So you're out on your own, and
yes.
How high would you get?
10,000 feet was the highest I've ever done. I've actually looked into down in Memphis, Tennessee. There's a place that will take you up to about 30,000, 35,000, and of course do a halo jump with hooked up to oxygen and all that. Of course, when I looked it up, it's quite pricey. You're looking at around 10,000, I believe, somewhere in that area.
For one jump?
I believe so. So I haven't done it yet, needless to say.
So at 10,000 height, like when you the first time you do it and you're on the other person's back, right? The piggybacking time when you're learning it, how high is that?
Never done it.
You've never done
that. No, I started off at about 3,000 feet, where I did my first 2 jumps as a static line. So as soon as you jump, yeah, and then after that, I went right into the free fall practice. So I went right into it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
you don't feel like you're falling at all.
I did the piggybacking one just once, and I like for a hot minute I was thinking like on my bucket list of things to do, I was like, I want to do the squirrel suits, where you're like flying. Yeah, I was like, oh, and so I started researching it, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. I'm totally gonna do it. I could do it, and then I heard that you have to have like 2,000 jumps underneath your. Wow. It's like 2,000 or 3,000 jumps before they'll consider allowing you to go squirrels. So, and then I was like running the math on like how much a jump would cost. Like in the beginning, it's like 200, 300. Even if you get to be a regular, it's still $50 a pop, right? So then you're like, okay, it's gonna cost me like how many $1,000s to like get up to this thing. And I'm like, I don't think but like I love, like yourself, I love the adrenaline activity. Yes. And I think the thing about getting older is that it really hurts when you bail, right? Like it's super, and like if you, obviously you have kids and so you have a livelihood. So you have like, them to protect and make sure that you can afford all those things. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would love to do that squirrel suit though. It looks like, have you seen the videos of the guys doing it? Like,
oh yes, out in Switzerland especially,
yeah,
which I've gone down there before. I've never seen anybody actually do it live, but I see these mountains and I'm like, that would be the perfect location to try this.
yeah. Yeah, where there's that spot where they go ripping down and there's like rocks that come up and they go through it, right? They
right
just go
through.
yeah, and they're doing like 320 kilometers an hour or something like that. It's like so fast.
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
So, adrenaline junkie, which I love to hear that. I'm loving you more and more. But one thing a lot of people may not know is you got into poker a long time ago as well. And you actually became a pro poker player.
I had a hot minute where I was playing poker professionally, and I was in, like, it was around, like, so when I got onto this TV show that I'm known best for Psych, when I got onto the show, I was like really heavy into poker, and I remember I had one of my biggest wins ever when we were in the middle of shooting the pilot for Psych, and I was a Canadian actor making, whatever it was a day, not that much money, like $500 or $1,000 for a day, which is a lot when you consider, but for actors, you might only work 10 days a year. So it doesn't really add up that much. And I played this poker game that on the Friday or Saturday night. And then, so I worked on like the Thursday, and then I came back to work on Monday, and I was like, I won $42,000 playing poker on Saturday.
Wow.
Like, what? And I was like, yeah. And then like that kind of started the gambling fever. And I mean, I still love the game. I play here and there, not a ton right now. It's a tough way to make an easy living, as Paul Newman says. But yeah, it's it's a fun thing to do. It's a very volatile career. I know a lot of people that have played as a career, and I don't miss the career at all. And, a lot of late nights, not a lot of sleep, but hell of a game. Love the game.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I could never even imagine what a career would be like in it, especially since I don't really win often. I'm just terrible. I guess it's the poker face I'm missing. I don't know.
It's a game of skill and a game of chance.
It is.
They both exist. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously I don't have that kind of skill.
Well, practice.
Anytime, man, anytime. It's an easy buck from me, trust me. Now, you mentioned Psych. Of course, you are famous. A lot of people know you very well from Psych as Buzz Mcnab. Now, how did you get that part first off? I mean, he's a beloved character throughout the series. You played in a ton of them, including the movies. I would say 57, 58 series episodes.
Somewhere around there, yeah. It was kind of a random thing where I went in to audition for a role that was dancing cop in the audition in the pilot, right? And when you're auditioning for a pilot, you don't know if the show's ever going to happen, right? It might happen, it might not. And there was a line of dialogue where James Roday is kind of doing this like Sean Vision, kind of figuring out what's going on, and then he says like, and you're getting married, and Lassiter's having an affair with that person, and and then I put up my hand to acknowledge something, and I can't remember what the moment was, and then the producer's like, oh, that was so funny when you put up your hand, you have to do that. And then that was kind of it. Like, we did the pilot, and they said like, oh, if we come back, you're in. And then I did come back, and I wasn't, but you don't know if it's going to happen, because sometimes they say that and it doesn't happen. And so it was really just kind of luck. And then like a wonderful experience to be part of a show for that long, like such a wonderful family of people. And I really think it starts with Steve Franks, who's the creator of the show. Like, he's just such a warm-hearted, gregarious guy, and just the whole vibes on the show were great. Like, everyone's really, really friendly and fun. And James and Dulé are hilarious, and they've got such great chemistry working off each other, and like the amount of ad-libbing that would go on in that show. And so there's a lot of room for creativity, which is really nice. Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of talent on that show, you included, of course, which really made for it. But I tell you, I am a huge fan of Psych. I always have been.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so much so that my kids grew up watching it, so now they're addicted to it. So if we take long road trips, they're like, can you put on Psych? I'm like, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with me listening to that. So
Now, what you guys are on a road trip? Do they have it in the backs of their seats, or is it on iPads? How does it?
We actually have it set up there's a center built-in television on
built-in thing.
Yeah, so we have
Nice.
it set up there for them.
Nice.
And of course, it's kids in modern day, so they have their cell phones, iPads, everything else if
They got
ever
everything.
need it.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
13 and 11.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be
So-
interesting for them. My mom's a teacher, and well, now she's a counselor, and she was a teacher for a long time. And I have a bunch of friends that are teachers, and obviously with what's going on in the world right now, it makes it really interesting for students, because if they're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, it really so much of the communication that happens between us is in this area of your face.
You don't get those expressions,
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting especially for kids that age, because there's so much angst at that age. Is there not? Like,
there really is.
Yeah.
And the way you and I grew up, I mean, this is just, I have no idea what to do. I mean, we're just playing it day by day. I'm hoping to figure out a way so that they can continue to socialize, continue to grow, and have that development. But it's a fine line, because you don't want to leave the house. You don't want to take them out in big crowds. So it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, when I was like 13, I hated my parents.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because they were my parents. I just hated them. They're good people, but is it tough for you sometimes? Do you have days where you feel like you just can do no right?
No, actually, and that's surprising, because I was the same way. At 13, I was hell on wheels. I always was as a teenager. How my parents didn't end up strangling me and I made it this far, I will never understand. But my 13-year-old, especially, going into being a teenager, is the most level-headed, intelligent. He's nothing like me, oddly enough. So obviously I'm doing something right on this end. I'm making the next generation a little better.
Oh, nice. That's great, man. That's great.
Yeah, fingers crossed,
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do. So one scene I do want to talk to you about, because, gosh, you were, again, 8 seasons of Psych. So a lot of great moments, a lot of pop culture references. But one of the scenes you probably had to have been a bit difficult for you was the booty dance. And I'd love to hear about that.
Well, that was funny, because I remember reading the script, and then I was asking, I was rehearsing it with, because I'm not a male dancer, and I was like, well, how is this going to go? And I remember that I was asking James, I was like, can I pick the song that we're gonna dance to? Because I was trying to rehearse it with my girlfriend at the time. I'm this is kind of. And but of course, it's TV, and in TV you have to pay the bucks for the song. So if you have a big song, it's 40 or 80 grand or whatever it is for a TV show. And we didn't have that much money in the budget for a memorable song. And so then, and they didn't know what the song was going to be. They were trying to figure out what they were going to use. And so it was maybe 20 minutes before we shot the scene that I'm in the hotel, and I'm like, James, what are we doing? And James is like, oh yeah, here's the song. And then I'm listening to it, and I'm trying to what should I do this? And then, and so it was pretty hilarious to shoot, right? Because with people that you've known for a long time. But that same episode, the funniest, one of the most awkward scenes I've ever shot in my life was earlier on that episode. Was it earlier on? No, it was later on, I guess. Later on in the episode when the rose bush comes along. And so you read it in the script, and I know that okay, it's going to be this bit where all the bad guys are out here and where everyone's running, and I'm going to run and I'm going to tackle this guy, and my pants will get caught on a rose bush, and the tearaway will open, you'll see my butt. And so James had me going to a tanning salon and tanning all week long with a thong on or something. You wanted to have the tan line or something like that. And so I go to 2 or 3 tanning sessions, and then they sprayed on the orange stuff or whatever as well. And then so when we shot the scene, it's just me in this tiny thong. And so you it's right out there. And I'm thinking we've already shot the reverse, right? So we've already shot me with all the crowd behind me, and I'm like, okay, so now we're gonna shoot the big money shot of my butt. And I'm like, well, for sure they'll send all the crowd home, because there's 150 extras here, with this wedding scene. And my girlfriend at the time, Andrea, was there doing extra work because she thought it was hilarious. She wanted to be there. And no, they don't send anyone home. So I've got 150 people seeing the Brocklebank moonshine show as I'm diving. And we did 4 or 5 takes, right? And then the irony is the whole thing, when you see the episode, NBC like blurted out because my butt was like too much buns, I guess.
A lot of butt.
Camera. Like it was so much. They were like, we can't show this. It's just too much. So it was, it was a pretty hilarious episode to shoot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I could, again, a great fan of that show, but just mentioning the moonshine, I have to bring up your web series that you came out with a few years back as well, Lance Wonderbuck, because one of the first images I see you in there was, of course, you in a thong.
Yeah, that's the same gold thong.
I was wondering
the same
that.
One.
Okay.
That's the one that they bought for Psych, and of course, they gave it to me when we were done, and I was like, oh, I'll use the same thong in Wonderbuck. Yeah, that's the same one. And that's funny you've seen that. I still want to do some more episodes. We wrote like half a season of Wonderbuck, but we never got around to shooting it. So maybe at some point we'll make some more out of that show. The burned up, washed up sci-fi star doing, children's birthday parties and whatnot. Yeah.
Well, I love it too. Funny. He's like, who is that? The little girl. Like, well, I think she said a little more than that, but
yeah,
it was great. It really was.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, that was a fun little project to make. Yeah.
Well, I hope to see more. You'll have to let me know if that ever does come about, because I know it's hard, and of course, bringing on the financing to do something like that can get a bit rough.
Yeah, that one we were able to shoot pretty cheap because that was all in my house that I live in. So it was like. Nice. I was like directing and acting and producing and location managing and craft servicing a shoot in my house. So, when you have all those categories, you can save a few bucks, but yeah, pretty crazy. I'm actually working on I'm building a sauna trailer in my backyard. This is my plan. And so I bought like a 17-foot 1976 Nomad trailer, and so right when COVID, like the world shut down, like middle of March this year, I guess, I was like, okay, I need a project. So I bought this thing and I got it all the way over from the island, and I had to break open the fence and get it in the yard, and then I like dismantled it all and took it down to the shell, and then unfortunately I learned that there was so much rot in the old trailer, there's just so many leaks in it that it wasn't really going to be worth trying to fix. It was just better to tear it down and go right down to the bones. So that's what we're going to do. I just haven't worked on it in like 3 months, but I'm going to start it in like the next week or two, and then my friend and I are going to probably start a little like YouTube channel to like document this crazy project that we're doing, because we're stoked about it. And things are kind of, I don't know what's going to happen this fall, but it feels like the world's slowing down like it did in the spring again in Vancouver again, like restaurants there's less hours and whatnot. So it's nice to have projects to keep yourself busy,
It is. Now, at the beginning of this pandemic, I thought I would take advantage, and the truth of the matter is I haven't done much aside from Bourbon. There hasn't been much that's happened here. I've gone on a few hikes. And
Bourbon is nice. No,
it does. It's helping me. Yeah.
You need a good friend. Bourbon's a good friend to have.
It really is. It really is. So what is your favorite bourbon? I mean, I'm curious. I know you are familiar with quite a few of them, but what's your favorite?
I'm really like a Knob Creek guy, mostly. Knob Creek is probably my favorite in terms of stuff that I get all the time. I've had some like really cool ones in specialty. I'm trying to think of the name right now, but I've had some really like top shelf bourbons, like occasionally when I've been at there's a bourbon bar in Vancouver called Fett's. It's Fett's Whiskey Bar, but they've got like an amazing selection of bourbon. And I've had some really like top shelf stuff that they charge you a fortune for just one shot, and it's really,
yes.
Really but it's been a dream, man, of mine to come to Kentucky for a long time. And we were putting together the pieces of the visit. Like it was going to be, there's a bunch of guys, and all the guys that in 2010 were game for this trip. Now most of them all have like kids and whatnot. So it's like we can't really all go on like a 14-day road trip. So how it was going to work is like one guy was probably going to drive the RV, or like two guys would drive it all the way down to Kentucky, and the other guys would just fly in for like 4 days of drunken debauchery and try to like get in as much value as possible, like go on the Bourbon Trail and go to all those places and like old dive bars, like
the best, the absolute best.
Yeah, I just love, like I went in one in Temecula one time, in Temecula, California, and
Yeah.
my friend took me to this bar, and the sides of the bar looked like they were old, like they almost looked like old shingles, but it was probably just old, like 1x2s or something that was, and so there was no insulation. You could see the nails coming through when you came in, and there was like a big American flag outside, and you got inside, and there was there was no insulation on any of the walls. It was just this like little tattered kind of, you know, structure, and there was a stage with a couple of different levels and like a stripper pole on it, and there was this woman behind the bar, like this kind of like biker woman with like very large chest and like, you know, like a strong tan and like kind of crimped blonde hair.
Oh, of course, that sounds about stereotypical.
Yeah. And then and so it was like $2.25 for a Budweiser, and then I think I was drinking. That was back in the day when I used to drink Jack and Cokes all the time, but it's a little too sweet for me now. But back in the day, I drink so I got a Jack and Coke. I think it was $2.75, so 2 drinks for $5. And so you get the drinks. So I'm there with a couple of buddies, and then what was interesting is they had this like pit bull, and the pit bull came from behind the bar, and it walked up onto the stage, and it lifted a leg and just peed on the stripper pole. But what was amazing about it is that all of the people that were in the bar, all the regulars, like nobody batted an eye. Like it must happen every day. Like they didn't seem to care. They like just looked at it and just turned back. And I was like, this is how we're doing it. I was like, I like it. Like, but it's hilarious.
It is. It's like a whole different golden shower concept.
Yeah.
It's great.
You know, the exposure to the culture. And I love a good dive bar, man. Yeah.
Personal favorites, and again, things change when you get married and have kids. But my favorite was I would always take my buddies at. We'd hit the dive bars, and they would always like, "Really, this is where you're going to take us, Mike?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." But the thing is, I would always go in dressed up, whether it was a suit, anything crazy. And they're like, "You're just looking for a fight, aren't you?" I'm like, "We'll be fine. Trust me, it'll be a great time." And I would always end up on stage with the band singing. It was my favorite.
Really?
Part. Yeah, it was always
nice.
great.
You're that guy. Right on, dude.
Yeah, loved it. So one of my favorite things to do.
Well, there's something really freeing about the environment of a dive bar, because you don't have to. It's, you know, you can kind of let your guard down because it's like got the appearance of being run down, I think. So it's more invigorating or freeing, right?
It really is, and again, I guess it's just a different, a different demographic that goes to these other crowded, more modern bars that, you know, they can be really good. I mean, I know a lot of modern bourbon bars I actually enjoy going to, not during a pandemic, unfortunately, but...
Is there bars open down there, or nothing's open?
No, there are. There are quite a few, actually. We have some restrictions, but it's probably not quite as strict as it is over there.
Okay.
But the bars are open. I can't go.
Yeah. No,
I still worry a little bit.
Yeah.
And you mentioned education earlier. My wife's in education, so we already take a chance with her coming home all the time.
Yeah, for sure. What does she teach?
Well, it was elementary education. She was a teacher for many years. She actually does something completely different now, interventionist, and will soon be a principal, it seems.
That's a high responsibility, high stress job. Principal.
Yeah.
You're running the whole ship. Yeah, that's a big responsibility. Yeah.
It means I'm home alone too, so I'm like, wow, what's going to happen here? It's like me and the boys can do a lot of damage here.
Yeah, so many activities.
I mean, I'm thinking jumping off the loft. I told her the other day, I've always wanted to jump off the loft onto the couch, and I was like, I'm sure the boys are right there with me. We should try this.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. She won't be home soon to stop me. Now, speaking of partying, you've actually gone down to, I believe it's Nevada, for the Burning Man Festival.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? Because I've looked at tickets. Of course, it was canceled this year because of the pandemic. But what did you think of that?
Oh, dude, I love it. It's I think it's a truly remarkable place that I think everyone should go once. And and so people go to Burning Man because they want to go to the best party in the planet, which it is, and that's one reason. But I don't think that's the reason to go. I think the real reason to go is because it's a society that exists on generosity. And so Burning Man is founded on these radical principles of radical self-reliance. So you bring what you need. radical self-expression. So you can say whatever you want to say and call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, like Moonfeather, whatever you want to say. And radical self-inclusion. So someone says they want to be called Moonfeather, you call them that. And then radical gifting. And then there's a bunch of other principles, but those are the core four, I'd say. And so you're in a world that is kind of like an original, it's like a Dr. Seuss story meeting Leave It to Beaver. And so everyone is
Really?
so nice and so friendly to their neighbor, because it's a giant house party, right? Where everyone kind of opens the doors to other people, and everyone has a gift or a contribution to give to other people. And it can be a small thing, or it can be something they created. It could be whatever you want. But because it's a society that exists on generosity, there's a shift in how people show up. And so it's a really amazing place to go, where, there's thousands of pieces of art that have been created for the sole purpose of a bunch of drunk and high people walking around and looking at it and playing with it and climbing it and saying like, wow, that's cool. And then a lot of this stuff gets burnt at the end of it, right? And so it kind of celebrates the impermanence of life. And
I love it.
so it's a pretty amazing place, man. Like, I've been a couple of times, and I'll definitely go back. Obviously I don't know when that'll all happen again, but I would say that I think it has so much value for anyone to go, because it's like there's this expression, it's your burn, you do what works for you. And so there's just a level of acceptance and that happens there, and freedom. And I mean, I live in a world that I like to, like a big part of my life is to contributing to others. I have a nonprofit mentorship program that I founded, and I used to volunteer for a lot of film festivals and theater festivals and stuff. So that's a big part of my life, but it is part of everyone's life when you're a Burning Man. So it's pretty great, remarkable experience to go to. Yeah.
I would love that. That sounds right up my alley. As a matter of fact, I would contribute the bourbon, by the way. But
yeah, see, and like I've been to places. I went to a place. These guys had set up picklebacks, which I love, right?
Yeah.
Usually a pickleback's with like Jameson, right? It's a standard. But these guys were doing Knob Creek pickleback with this one guy's grandma's brine from her pickles that she made. And it was amazing. Oh, like, and so like you're thinking like, in what bar would they use Knob Creek on a pickleback? Because it's so expensive, but that's what these guys were doing. And it was like, I had like 7 of them. Wow. It was amazing. Oh yeah. No.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And we always come back to bourbon, which I'm loving that, by the way. Have you ever got the chance to try Pappy Van Winkle 20 years?
No, I've heard of it though.
That's
I've heard
great
of it.
stuff. Yeah. Well, it made national news a few years ago because I guess a bunch of people here had robbed some of the distilleries they worked for, and that happened to be one of them, which is the Buffalo Trace Distillery. And
yeah.
And like you said, it was one of those bourbons earlier that when you bought it, it was $50 to $80 for a 2-ounce pour. So it was,
Yeah.
And I was fortunate one time that my wife let me buy a bottle. A buddy of mine called me up. They were selling for about $1,000 a bottle, and he had one. Yeah, but he was like, "I will sell it to you for $500." And I was like, I had to sweet talk my wife so much. I was like, "This is Christmas, everything. Let me get it."
Oh wow!
And I did. It was wonderful. I love it. Yeah.
So will you have it with rocks or just straight up neat?
Most of them I do neat. Now, in the summer, that might change just because of how heat. But for the most part, I like mine neat.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to polish off that bottle?
Oh, I was forced. My wife wouldn't let me really sip on that one. I had to wait. So 2 months, maybe.
Oh, okay. That's
still
pretty
wasn't
good.
long. Yeah.
That's good value. That's great value.
I thought so.
I think so.
The bottle and the bag it came in sold on eBay for $100.
Oh, so you got a rebate out of the deal. You got some money back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was worth it.
Wow. So what would that cost now if I wanted to get a bottle of that?
I'm guessing from what I've heard recently, most recently for me, I'd say it's still around $1,000, $1,500 US dollars.
$1,000 US dollars. That's like $1,350, $1,400. But I bet you to get a bottle up here in Canada, it's going to cost $2,000 probably.
It may. Well, if you do, I would love to see a picture on your Instagram.
Oh, if I do, you will. For sure, you will. I'll send you a video of me drinking. I mean, I don't see it, but that would be something that, like, if I have this Bourbon Boys trip and we went down to Kentucky, that we would like pool in like 5 or 6 of us and just buy a bottle and then taste it. And at one point we had the idea that we were going to like produce an episode of a TV show and maybe try to sell it to the bourbon distilleries, just like advertising, like these crazy Canadians come down and do the tour. And I don't know, we had some harebrained scheme. We were trying to think of like, how can we go down to Kentucky and like party and drink every day and get it paid for? We were like, how could we, or maybe we could get Maker's Mark to give us the money to go on the vacation if we did, like, took a video of it.
I'm still trying to get somebody to sponsor me that way. bourbon wise.
Man.
I mean, yeah.
And
I will tell you this. I don't know if you've ever looked into it, but Maker's Mark, you can go online.
Yeah.
I hope you're watching Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
And you can become a Maker's Mark ambassador. You sign up for it there, and what they'll do is put your name on a barrel along with a few other people's names. I would say about a dozen, maybe more.
Yeah.
And for the next 7 years, they will send you updates via email, how your bourbon is aging. Plus, they will send you little gifts all the time. I mean, some of them were as little, just business cards that said you're an ambassador. Some of them were, glasses that you could pour into, ice trays, things of that nature. Just anything Maker's Mark related. And so the next 7 years, you'll receive gifts, and then you'll get a Willy Wonka-looking golden ticket. And they'll tell you when your barrel's ready, what dates you can come by there, and they give you about a month or so time span. You can actually get 3 bottles from your barrel, have your name put on the label, and dip it all yourself, all that good stuff. So it's a really cool experience. And then once or twice a year, they do it at an ambassador appreciation, which, you'll get some tickets for free drinks, free food, things like that. So it's a lot of fun.
So it's a 7-year, that's playing the long game with Makers. I like that.
It is. It's all about the marketing.
Itch. You're setting yourself up. That's like Game of Thrones, right? Hodor. That's what that is. It's like a Hodor move.
Except this ending is so much better.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. The show just, it was such a brilliant show, and then it just all went to shit the last 2 episodes. Like, what happened?
Right?
What happened?
It was such a letdown. I'm so disappointed.
Because at first, like, the dragons are invincible, and then suddenly one of them like just dies, so now they're not invincible, and then all of a sudden, like, the next one's like this badass dragon that's killing everybody. Like, which one is it? Which one is it?
Yeah,
what's
make
going on
up
with
your
this
mind.
dragon?
Well, that and just playing with your emotions, like, are you going to live? Are you going to die? I like Lannisters. I hate the Lannisters. It's like, what do you do?
Yeah, I know.
It's a great show, though.
Oh,
and now there's the spinoff.
Is there a spinoff coming?
There is. HBO Max will have a spinoff, which I believe takes place prior to the original series.
So who's in it? What's it about?
I have no idea. I just read that recently, and I'm like, well, that's going to be interesting. Unless it's anything like the last episode of the series.
Yeah, so, I would be interested. It was such a good show. Yeah.
Speaking of which, though, we haven't got into your producing. I guess about 2014, 2015, you started producing movies as well.
Yeah. I did a lot of. I was producing theater for kind of my whole career. I had a theater company and was producing like small, super small budget plays, and then I was trying to get this movie made, Scam, with my buddy Alan Morrison and Patrick Sabonki, and we still might make that movie. Alan's grandfather had been like phone scammed by these guys from Jamaica for like around almost like $300,000 over the course of like 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and it was like a really kind of like they're really good. They build a relationship with you and they isolate the person from their family. Like, it's a really multi-layered scheme. And then Patrick grew up in Montreal and knew a lot of guys that used to do it like in the 90s. And so we had like all this kind of like 2 sides of the story, and we were trying to get this movie made. And we shot a bunch of teasers, never made that movie, but I made I associate produced 3 or 4 features. And then I produced and raised capital for one called Suspension that was like this kind of, see, now I see your mask right there that you have right there. You're next to, you got your Jason mask, right?
The Jason mask,
so our guy was wearing like a Jason mask as well. And, so it was kind of like a hybrid of a Friday the 13th meets, was it Carrie? What was the other? But it was a really fun experience. We shot it on my buddy Brian Anderson's horse farm, and a lot of night shoots with rain, low budget film. Everyone's working for pennies in the dollar, and so it was great, man. Like, it was super fun. And I haven't produced anything lately. Like, I guess the last thing I produced was Lance Wonderbrock in my house, and much smaller scale and scope of story. But I love it. Like, it's it's an interesting profession because you are responsible for everything. So the buck stops here with you, and and you get to take something from an idea to fruition, and
Yes.
that's super satisfying and great. And it's a lot of work and a lot of problem solving. I like problem solving. So I mean,
Do you?
yeah. Have you ever produced anything? Well, you're
Me
producing this
myself.
show that you're doing, probably.
Yeah, we're not going to count that. It probably won't go on my resume once I start getting out there again. No, not at all, not at all. As a matter of fact, let's see. I've been doing this show for about. Oh, no, I'm kidding. I started this during the pandemic, and I loved it
Yeah.
because I've had a lot of friends that are actors. They've been in different movies and television series. So the first thing I did was reach out to them. I was like, this is what I feel like trying.
Yeah, that's great,
And
man.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I really do. But it's been a great time, and it's been a lot of fun, and I get to meet, some talented people like yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, plus I've made some new friends because there are a lot of people that we've already like, okay, let's go hang out, let's go have dinner, let's do this, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's a great time.
Well, I mean,
So,
if you ever come to Vancouver, I'll give you a tour. I'll show you the town.
well, I'll see if I can bring some Pappy Van Winkles.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. I'd be all over that.
Yeah, it'd be a good time. Plus, out in your area again, I mean, I've fallen in love with just the pictures and everything I've ever read about Vancouver in that area. But out on the ocean, just being able to get out there, see orcas, anything of that nature,
Mhm.
that's still on my bucket list. I mean, I've swam
Oh
with sharks, I've done a ton of things, but orcas, I've never been around. I'll try to ride one if we ever get out there.
yeah, I mean, I've seen them at the aquarium. I don't think definitely seen whales and seals. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've seen the orca or not, but I've seen a lot of. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing when you go. All the Gulf Islands that exist around BC are great. Yeah, yeah.
uh, what was I going to ask you next? It had to do with suspension. You actually had a part in suspension as well as producing it. You played
Yeah, I had a
Deputy
pretty sweet
Jacobs, I
mustache.
believe.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had a sweet like handlebar mustache, and
it kind of had the pornish look, which it
yeah,
would
it
have went
did,
really
right?
well with
Was kind of
the
this.
golden thongs.
Yeah, kind of like that '70s porn kind of like thing going
It was,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, that was I rocked that stash for a while. I ended up getting a couple other like TV gigs, but what's interesting about a mustache, and this is what my friend told me, and I experienced this too, is like, so it's a distinct look. It's a strong play, and so when you're making a strong play, there's a lot of
More
people that
special.
are like, ooh, they're not a fan, right? They see it and they're not a fan. And so like if you go to like, pre-pandemic, when you went to like a bar or a nightclub and you look across a sea of people, there would be all these ladies, and a lot of them would kind of, they're not sure about the stash, but there's always like one or two that is like, and they have like grown up
Mm.
watching Tom Selleck on Magnum PI, and they have a thing for mustaches, and they're
Yes.
like, and they move in
They're
on
just
you.
like,
So like, yeah. So like when it's right, and you have hit the jackpot. You are like the most exciting flavor in the place.
yeah.
Yeah, they're funny. Yeah.
Which I actually did the handlebars not long ago, and I
Oh,
went
nice.
out, well, before the pandemic, when I say not long ago, and actually went out in public that way. And I
Yeah.
it was more shits and giggles. I just had to try it.
Oh, it's fun. It's super fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned being in other shows, and you've done, as far as nerds like me go, because I am a nerd. I love comics. I'm a huge Superman fan, as a matter
Oh,
of fact,
nice,
and
nice.
you probably know
Yeah.
where I'm going with this. My kids are even named Kal-El and Con-El, at least their middle names. But you were in, let's see, Smallville, Supergirl. You're part of the Arrowverse now, so you've been in a lot of those CW shows as well.
Yeah. And I almost had a part in that Superman movie they shot here. I thought I was on hold for like 3 months, and I can't remember even what the part was, but yeah, I've done a fair amount of those shows, and looking forward to doing the ones that I haven't done still. We shoot a lot of them up in Vancouver, right? We shoot
Yes.
Flash, we shoot Riverdale, we shoot Supergirl, we shoot what's that other one that's similar to Sabrina? Like they all shoot up here, and so yeah, I mean, I've had little kibbles and bits on a bunch of them, and hoping to have some more kibbles and bits, and yeah, see what comes of it.
Now, what's been your favorite experience as far as some of these roles go? Because I liked seeing you as Gaston as well.
Oh yeah.
Holding a sword, being a badass, just it seems appropriate for you. And seeing you in
Mhm.
Supernatural was the same thing. It was more of that badass approach to everything.
Yeah.
It was a lot different than Buzz Mcnab from Psych.
Hmm.
So I guess what kind of character do you enjoy playing the most?
You know, when I was younger, I loved doing like rom-com stuff, like funny stuff. Like I've done a bunch of Hallmark and Lifetime movies, and that was like the thing that I gravitated towards, and I
Mm.
definitely like gravitate towards comedy. But as I get older, like right now, I'm rocking this weird kind of haircut, whereas I've got the gray on the side and then the
I'm
black up
digging it.
top, so I can kind of like do like a villain, you know. But
Digging
so,
it.
and the thing about playing villains is you can get away with doing way more stuff because they're villains. They can be unpredictable. They can be kind of off kilter. You know, can look different. You can have scars on your face, which is fun. So as I get older, I'm kind of like looking forward to doing, like, I had a lot of fun on Supernatural. That was one of the first times that I got to play like in mainstream TV, like a villain. Um, so I'm looking forward to doing more of those kind of sadistic, weird people. And like, I guess the being seen that way is weird if you're playing someone who's like a psycho killer or something like that. And it's, to get there and authentically do the work well is definitely takes a certain kind of concentration. And
Mhm.
you might become a little moody for the people in your lives for a while you're trying to like get underneath it and figure it
In
out.
character, yeah.
But I'm looking forward to playing those kind of roles the most moving forward because there's freedom to be really creative, you know? Yeah.
Well, first off, you're very talented, so I can't wait to see you do something along those lines. And of course, your stature. I mean, you're a big guy.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
an intimidation factor there too.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you look like a big fella. What how much how tall are you?
I'm only 6'1", so
Oh,
yeah.
6'1". You're a big guy. No. Did you play like football or anything like that when you were younger?
No, for me, since the time I was 2, it was always different martial arts. I did that
Oh.
for quite some time. Yeah,
What
yeah.
kind of martial arts did you do?
You name it. I've done anything from Krav Maga to Togakyo Ninjutsu to karate, taekwondo, all the judo, a little bit of
Wow.
everything since I was a kid. Yeah,
Wow. And do you still practice any of that stuff?
that's debatable. I still train here and there. I get up in the mornings, jog to the gym, do a little workout, but for the
Oh,
most
nice.
part, as far as any kind of martial arts goes, it's whatever I work with my kids and me.
Yeah.
Because again, in the younger days, it was a whole different story going to dive bars.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would imagine. I would imagine. Are your kids into the martial arts?
They're not huge fans. A whole new generation, man. I tell you, you see these kids now, they want to play video games for the most part, which, anybody
Yeah.
can enjoy video games. I love video
Hmm.
games, but
Yeah.
when you want to do it 24/7, I'm just like, there are other things to do, like read a book, go outside and play.
Yeah.
We have a lake, we have ponds, we have land.
Oh,
I'm like,
nice.
get out there and don't come back for a while.
Well, no, I think it's so great that you do that because so when I was a kid, my name's Sage. I got hippie parents. I'm a vegetarian since birth, and so I didn't have a traditional, I guess, upbringing. But one of the things that my parents did is the TV was like in the basement. We had this old crappy TV that would have the little rabbit ears on it, and it was in the basement. It would just come out on Sunday for like Disney. Like that, I would only get like
Nice.
the hour or 2 hours of TV a week, and it drove me crazy because I go over to friends' house and they'd have TV there, and I get to watch it all the time. I'm like, this is bullshit. And I didn't get that much like junk food at the house. It was mostly like healthier food. Um, but I have to say, like, I think my level of like creative thinking and problem solving is greatly attributed to the fact that I was out in nature a lot as a child, and I had to like keep my mind occupied and had to like entertain myself. And I think like my big concern for this generation right now is because you have a generation of kids being raised on iPads because parents have to work 2 jobs. So what are you going to do when you're working 2 jobs and you don't have time to like entertain your kids yourself? You got to put them in front of something. So then, and I think that like people's resiliency as a human being happens from being outside and falling on the ground and like getting
Yeah.
burnt, cutting yourself and just getting a bit and all. Like you need those things to happen to you.
Experience, yeah.
You need to burn your hand on the stove. You need to fall off
Yeah.
the bike and scratch your face. Like this is part of life.
Yeah.
And but there's a younger generation that has not experienced that. A lot of them and their parents have really kind of coddled them. And I think it's a really dangerous thing because the tools and the skill set that you and I have on like how to get through, like you've been in those ballroom brawls that aren't
Yeah.
fun, and but you learn something in that, right? You do learn something. And so I'm a big advocate for, being in the great outdoors, and that I'm hoping that that's one of the weird positive byproducts that's happened from this pandemic, is that in a lot of areas, the only thing there's been to do is go out to a park.
Yeah, go hiking, go camping, just
Yeah.
hang out there. It's wonderful. And I tell you, you're right though. And you mentioned earlier with kids wearing masks, just the expressions and the way of communicating has changed. And it will. It's going to affect them in the long run. So not being able to even be around somebody and communicating on screen, it's just a whole nother world. I don't understand the texting all the time. I text, but there's a lot missing there. You don't see a person's face. You don't get what it is, the emotion that's behind it when somebody texts you, and that's going to drag into their lives later on when they're actually communicating with somebody face to face.
Well, and
it's really weird.
I think there's this really well produced show called Euphoria on HBO. And it's pretty like heavy subject matter, because it's like these young girls that are like drug addicts and all this stuff that's happening to them. And it's really well done, because in the show, most of the characters, they communicate all the pivotal moments where they're feeling stuff is done through texting. And I think it's true to life. And so, I'm a big advocate for having difficult conversations in like real life. So having like the most thing that you fear talking about, like sitting down across a table or in a room and like telling someone the truth face to face, because it's difficult. It's hard. And but you grow as a human being from that, and you overcome that obstacle. And I think like what you're talking about is that the younger generation, they aren't comfortable doing that, so they have that conversation via text later, as opposed to in the moment when it's happening. And then that vital skill set and ability to be resilient and be able to move,
be able to cope
isn't there. And so it's so I think it's great that you're kicking your kids out of the house and getting them out in the nature and getting them to go through all that, because it's a vital part of being a human being, I think.
Well, and they may complain at first, but they end up enjoying it. Like, we go camping and hiking all the time. It's just part of life. It's always going to be there as long as you're living with me.
Oh, nice, man. That's great.
And just FYI, you are allowed to cuss on this show. I say fuck
all
the time.
I'm like, what is that?
And I usually wait. I always have everybody's asked so far, and I always forget to tell people at the beginning of the show, you're more than welcome. But I've only had one person actually ask me prior to, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead.
Totally. I forgot, and then I was like, it feels like it's probably okay. He's got the Jaws poster, maybe. I'm not sure.
Are
you a huge Jaws fan?
My wife is. I love sharks. We both are huge shark fans. She was actually going to be a marine biologist. Hell, that's how we actually met, is I was doing a bunch of shark dives, and she saw the pictures, and weird story there. But Jaws it's a terrific movie. Parts I don't like are just the fear it instilled in people, but being a horror movie fan, it's still part of my decor.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
what about you?
My phone is starting to get low on here, so I'll probably have to go in the next 5 or 7 minutes. I don't want it to, because it's starting to lag the picture when I'm watching you, and I think the battery's low.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're right on time here, because we only do an hour. I don't like to keep anybody
on
too long. I'm sure
cool.
you got better things to do. And come on, this show. I mean,
no, I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it.
No, I'm having a blast with you. I really am. And real quick, you've got something in post-production right now, Tipping Point, which is a short film, a crime drama. Tell me just a quick minute about that, if you can. And
Tipping Point? Oh my gosh, is that still... Dude,
it's not out yet.
Serena's film? That's Serena's film? Is that what that is?
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah. Dude, we shot that like ages ago. My friend was trying to get, I think she's trying to get a TV series going, and we shot this short for it, Tipping Point. We had to shoot that that'd be like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
No kidding.
But,
okay.
The camera guy, Cliffy Hokinson, is hilarious. I've worked with Cliffy on like a bunch of low budget movies, and then he worked on Psych on like season 2 or season 3. And I remember, I think I was a bad guy on that. And that's why I was excited to do it. I remember shooting down by the water, and there was some sort of like exchange going. Maybe I was like dealing arms or something like that. But it was wild. I can't even remember, man. I don't know.
I didn't realize it was that long ago.
Yeah, yeah. I took a kind of break from the industry, and then I just got. I mean, I did the Psych movie last year, and I did a friend's short film that he was creating like recently. But I haven't really been like in the industry for a while, and I just kind of got back into it last week and had my first audition. And it's different now. Obviously, we're doing it all at home, kind of self-tape, kind of like how you are set
Yeah.
up there, background and some lights. And so I'm hoping to do a bunch of work this fall, or to do a few gigs here and there, because it seems like in Vancouver, we're, knock on wood, we've got a lot of work going on. It's going well. So
Good.
yeah, and at some point I'll pepper this piece of promotional material. So I have this business called Property Sage, where
Yes.
I rent and I restore and I sublease and manage houses here in Vancouver, because we have like a vacancy tax. So if you leave your house empty for a couple of years, they tax you really heavily. So my buddy just walked by naked in the background, and you missed it because the camera was not. But he thought the camera was pointed that way, and he just walked by. That's too bad. That's
Dude,
totally,
that's badass.
But the camera, he just had to do a naked walk by because he knew I was doing this interview. That's amazing.
Dude, I'm loving your friends already, man. That's badass.
Oh my god, that is so funny. Yeah. So anyway, so I have this business, and I was trying to get a reality show made of the business, and then my friends are like, no, it's like a scripted half hour on like this guy who's like doing these kind of hack job renos, and so I'm creating the show with a buddy of mine. It'll take a while before we'll get it made, but the idea is like, how HGTV has all the home reno shows are done kind of in the same tone of like Hallmark, where it's really like nice and clean and glossy, but no one does like the Eastbound and Down version of
or
like
naked friends walking by.
Yes, exactly. And that's what my show would be. There'd be bourbon, and there'd be all like the crazy things that happen in life. So yeah, at some point we're going to produce that and get that made. And maybe that'll be my claim to fame at some point. I don't know.
I love the idea. That's great.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep picturing. I'm like waiting for something to go by.
Yeah, I know. If you walk by again, I would rotate the camera, but I guess if you just walked by and I was like just checking it out, it was hilarious.
And on chat, I had somebody's like, people like that. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But I do want to say thank you. I know your phone's about to die, and I really appreciate you being here. For everybody that is watching, be sure to check out Sage Brocklebank on Psych, of course, all 8 seasons, plus the 2 movies it spawned, Psych the movie and Psych 2, Lassie Come Home. Hopefully there will be more, and I'll be seeing you there. But until then, I can't wait to see you as a villain. So that's going to be my goal in life, is just to wait around and like, when is he going to play the villain?
Yeah, well, and I will see you at some point in Kentucky.
Yes.
We will have some bourbon in Kentucky, and maybe next year I'll go across the border. I guess we'll see what happens, right? We'll see. But we will meet again, my friend.
Absolutely, brother, and thank you again for being on KyTalk Live.
All right, thanks a lot, Kai. Appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
Much love, brother. You too.
Yeah.
All right, and
dude, well, thank you so much, man. It was really great meeting you and being a part of this. And I hope the rest of this crazy pandemic treats you and your family well, man. And congrats for creating this as like what you said you weren't doing much during the pandemic, and you created a podcast. So that's huge, dude. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, well, it's great, dude, man. I checked a few clips on YouTube. It's, you're plugging along, dude. It's great. Thanks so much, man. All right. Sounds good, man. Talk soon.